Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And you know something, Eric? Sometimes, it doesn't happen often that there's not a lot to talk about. This week is not one of those times. We start out with something near and dear to both of us. We went to the same concert, not together. I didn't even know you then, 1989. And by the way, that concert, not that one, but that the one I saw later in Atlantic City, is on iTunes. And I say that is, if you listen to totally maybe among the best concerts ever recorded. But now we fast forward, almost 40 years later, and I get a pop-up on my iPhone that the Stones, I thought it was a joke. I thought actually you were kidding with me, Dr. Lopkin. But as we know, Mick Jagger turned 78, Charlie Watts just turned 80, and yet they are touring. And as you know, Dr. Lopkin, there is no bigger Stones fan than me, probably in the past tense. But literally, if you gave me a free ticket and they were playing in Hartford, Rensselaer Field, I would not go.
Yeah, no, the Stones' best days are long behind them. And it's something that certain people need to learn, is that just because you were good at something once doesn't mean you can do it forever. And it's not just music. I mean, there are actors whose best days are behind them. There's, hey, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, their best days are long behind them.
Can I throw actually Mr. Biden in there, our esteemed president?
Yes,
you think
Joe
maybe
Biden
he could be in the same group of Rolling Stones?
Yes, their best days are behind them. It's time to retire, go home, stop making fools of yourselves.
Yes, and one little quick note before we move on. You know how much of a Keith Richards fan I am, and I think you are too, correct, Dr. Lopkin?
Yes.
I think when he's on, there is no one better. I don't care about those, surveys, and then he takes you to another place. Unfortunately, the place is no longer there because it was like 2 years ago. I just happened to be doing the dishes or something, and they had Havana Nights on. It was like that tour they did in Cuba like 5 years ago, and literally, Keith had this guitar solo, a song called "Out of Control," something like that, right? Whatever. And two of my cats, I wish I recorded it for YouTube. Both my cats, Siamese cats, are on my sofa howling. They thought it was another cat. It was like, I was like, holy, they were going, they thought it was another cat. But anyway, I agree with you. There's no controversy there. It is time to hang up the proverbial, yes. And then also, what happens is if you have a history of, let's say they started in 65, so you're talking about like almost a 60-year history, okay? Unfortunately, if they stopped when we saw them in 89, it's all of a 30-year amazing history. But now half their history is irrelevant, and it tarnishes the whole legacy. Am I not correct?
You are absolutely correct. You have to understand that there's a time to hang up your shoes and give it up, and they're past that. And it's not a matter of age, it's a matter of ability. And when you hear them sing, when you hear them play today, they're a shadow of their former selves.
A shadow. It's actually sad, and people don't, like if I'm with friends or whatever, having a couple drinks or going out to dinner or whatever, just casual conversation. And they think the Stones suck, and I can't even argue with them. I say, if you heard some of remember the stuff we used to play? We were on the terrestrial radio.
Yes.
It was like out of control, correct? I mean, it was off the hook rock and roll. You can't get any better than that. But anyway, they're not going to listen to us. They should, but they're not going to. Moving on to another topic, the Olympics. First of all, it's kind of interesting. The ratings are way down. Do you know that, Dr. Lopkin?
Yes, the ratings are among the lowest they've ever been. And everybody that I've spoken to that's actually watched them has been disappointed both in the performances of the athletes and the entire ambiance of the Olympics. The Olympics used to be this spectacle of grandeur, and you can't do that with nobody in the audience. You can't do that masked. Honestly, they should have just canceled these Olympics and waited until after COVID was done to come back.
I would agree. And another interesting point, our basketball team, which is really a pro team, lost to France.
Yeah, lost to France. Fortunately, they beat Iran.
Wow.
And not by a little. I think the score was 117-66. So,
wow.
So I'm hoping that the loss to France, sort of smacked them all in the head going, oh, wait a minute, we actually have to play.
Yeah, that's a novel thought. Speaking of playing, we have our U.S. gymnast that kind of in the middle of things decided that the pressure was too much. Your comments, Dr. Lopkin?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a revelation because even as a kid, I knew half the Olympics, maybe more of that, was the pressure of the intense competition. That's why it makes it so, you look at the Winter Olympics, with the figure skating down to a fraction of a second. I mean, it's all about competitive pressures. Am I wrong? Tell me.
Yeah, that is the point of the Olympics. And, Simone Biles has left the Olympics. She's pulled out. And I heard pundits talking about the fact that she's been under this increased scrutiny and intense pressure for years because of the scandals that had rocked the U.S. gymnastics team. Okay, if this has been going on for years and she was under that much pressure, she should have pulled out before the games began and not waited until in the middle. And realistically, there's a lot of people talking about the fact that, well, she blew a twist. One announcer described it as she got lost in her thoughts in midair and forgot to do part of her routine. And all of a sudden, since that happened, oh, the stress is too much for me. I have to pull out. It's like, really? No, you screwed up. Guess what? Every athlete screws up at one time or another. Everybody, in life screws up at one time or another. I'm actually going to pull a quote from Winston Churchill. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the strength to continue that defines us.
Okay, but Winston Churchill now, I'm being facetious, has drifted into irrelevancy with our current world global culture. I agree with that statement, by the way. It's really funny because I was a kid during the 72 Olympics, and when our team lost to the Russians in basketball, it was, even though they were only college athletes and they lost by, a controversial play, so on and so forth, and by 1 point, whatever, they still got a lot of grief. But, fast forward 50 years later, isn't it really interesting that it's almost like accepted? Like, yes, she pulled out because of the pressure and she might get contracts for probably, I don't know, stress reduction clinics or something. I mean, there's really no price to be paid. She let her team down. If she did it before, that's fine. We all make decisions. But you don't do it in mid-flight.
No, she should not have pulled out. She should have dealt with this stuff before the game started. And again, this is excuse me. This is an example of the generation that got awards for showing up.
God,
and everybody is a victim now. It's too much. We can't handle it. We need our hands held. It's like, no. This is what you worked for. And let's face it, this is a woman who put in years and years and years of training to get to this point. To pull out right before you actually go into the solo event, ridiculous.
Yeah, I would agree. Exactly. No question about it. And I think you're right. I think it is not in total, but in at least some part, the whole 30 years of everyone gets a trophy. You can just bail out. You don't have to worry about, the other. How about the other teammates? How about maybe the people or the person waiting in the wings that was a runner up? Give her the opportunity. If you don't want to do it, and how about your team? Now they're finished. Now, it's not all about yourself, but that's where we've come in life, haven't we?
She took a spot on the team. If she could not handle it, she should have given that spot to the next person. Who knows? That next person might have been phenomenal. They might have done a routine that blew everybody away, but no.
And become world famous.
Right, but she was thinking of herself. She wanted her spot, but not enough to actually complete what she signed up for.
Yeah, so we'll move on from that. I think I guess culture does have consequences, and the culture of everyone wins has consequences. So we're moving on to the January 6th hearings, the insurrection, and Nancy Pelosi's kind of having a show trial. But here's where we're probably going to disagree, Dr. Lopkin. I don't believe in the show trial. Obviously, it's a political stunt, so on and so forth. However, I'm going to have to say that action, what Donald Trump did, was a bridge too far. Yes, he said, go peacefully, whatever. But you're saying that, hey, this place could burn up in a movie theater. Okay, you're not yelling fire exactly, but come on, let's call a spade. You're getting people jazzed up. There's already buzzes on social media about taking over the Capitol. I believe that he should be held accountable for that. I don't know if impeachment was a problem. Whatever. I thought what he did was really hurt our democracy, and I believe that, to me, it made him politically. I think he made so many bad judgments in the last year of his presidency. I believe if he walked away, maybe protested a little bit about some election irregularities, so on and so forth, fine. I believe that he shot himself not in the foot, in the head, so to speak, because I think it's too much for a lot of people. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you say Trump should be held responsible. He was impeached. That's what the second impeachment was all about. It's literally Nancy Pelosi putting together some folks that agree with her point of view to investigate, and they're not investigating. Let's face it.
No, bringing up, and what it really is, now we actually agree. What it really is taking away some of the heat from Biden's mishaps, going back again. And you know what?
No. It's not even Biden's mishaps. It's Pelosi's. Because days before this happened, and this has been well documented, Trump said there is going to be trouble. We need to bring in the National Guard to provide security. And Pelosi said no. Pelosi made sure there was not the security, and now she's trying to cover it up because she wanted to make Trump look bad, and she succeeded. But she has to take her lumps as well. And this show trial is just her trying to cover her ass.
I wouldn't argue with that, again, but I still was more than disappointed with Donald Trump. I think he had a real political legacy. I think that severely tarnished him, both his political future and his standing in history. That is my thoughts. Pelosi is a political hack. Nothing surprises me about whatever she would do. Moving on to COVID. This is troubling, problematic to say the least. Looks like the mask mandate may come in again. I think that is going to happen, and I'm not so sure. I'm pretty much convinced. I don't want it to happen. That I don't know, October we could go in another lockdown. What do you think, Dr. Lopkin?
Yeah, it's starting to look like that. And the fact of the matter is, we talked about the science behind this last week, and the truth of the matter is that the mask mandates, everything that's going on is not following the science. They're talking about the people who've gotten vaccinated that have still been able to get the Delta variant. Let's look at the numbers. 108, and these are approximate numbers, I'm not giving exact ones, 108 million people have been vaccinated. Okay? It's actually 108 million something, but 108 million people have been vaccinated. How many severe cases have there been of the Delta variant? Under 5,000. You're talking less than a fraction of a percent. But politicians never want to waste a crisis. They want people to believe that they are dependent on the government for their very lives. And that's what we're seeing now. Fauci is trying to boost up his rep and his legacy. And the CDC, I mean, I've seen literally dozens of doctors looking at the CDC announcement saying, this is ridiculous. The facts do not support this.
Well, I do agree with you 100% that it was an amazing demonstration in governmental control and many people's acquiescence of that and acceptance of that. Again, you'll probably disagree with me on this one. I am infuriated, though, by the idiots that didn't get vaccinated. You have a group of people, 30-40% of America. Now, if you have a pre-existing conditions, fine. Okay, I get that, right? But all this stuff with microchips and all this other crap. Okay, no. What they're doing, these idiots, and they are idiots, jeopardizing my ass because the Delta variant. You're letting what happened is everyone got vaccinated, or 90% of people got vaccinated. It almost probably would have been a dead end for the virus. But you're giving it an area of incubation of, 100 million people, whatever it is, okay? That now, how about another variant, the Delta 7 variant, okay? Who knows what's going to happen with that one? So these effing people that are too stupid and listen to all these conspiracy crap. And also, I'm sorry to say, I blame a little bit of that on Donald Trump with politicizing the whole thing with masks and vaccines and all this crap, okay? But the bottom line is you can go into the causes or why it happened. I'm a little pissed. Obviously, you can tell by my by my actions here. But you don't want to get the vaccine because you think there's a Well, by the way, genius, you got more tracking ability in a cell phone, you dumbass. You Dr. Lopkin.
The anti-vaxxers are absolutely ridiculous.
They're morons.
They're basing their decisions on incorrect information. And this is not new. This goes back. If you want the truth, I actually lay some of the blame on Oprah Winfrey, because Oprah gave Jenny McCarthy an audience to promote anti-vaccines. She said, these vaccines cause autism. There's nothing further from the truth. There's no scientific
Jenny McCarthy,
evidence.
A Playboy centerfold.
Yes.
Where'd she get her doctorate in?
Right.
Where'd she get, like, Billy Bob University? I don't think she ever went to a university.
Oprah gave her this platform to tell people, don't get vaccinated. And that started it, and it's been rolling ever since. It is absolutely ridiculous. The whole microchip thing, we talked about this on the podcast. The microchips are on syringes. They're RFID chips to make sure they get where they're going. These same chips are basically what allows you to go online and check FedEx and UPS to see where your Amazon package is. This is not tracking people. There is nothing dangerous about the vaccine. But these people
are jeopardizing. They're jeopardizing me. They're jeopardizing you and your family. They're jeopardizing the economy and also people's mental health. Because I got to be honest with you, if we go into a full shutdown because these numbnuts didn't get a vaccine because of alien and black helicopters, I'm going to be really pissed because I am in the line of I'm not really looking forward to another lockdown, me and about 100 million other Americans. Dr. Lopkin?
No, nobody's looking forward to another lockdown. And honestly, I've heard this said a number of times. And honestly, I think it's true. The American people do not have it in them to do another lockdown. I think if the government starts locking down things, you are going to see masses of people ignoring them and going out and doing whatever and just ignoring the government mandates.
I think it could be worse than that, and I'm not in any way condoning it because it's a danger. We're already at a slipping point. We're down a slope in America anyway. There's people I know, and I'm talking to a liberal person who's, I'm not going to say, someone in their family is, one of those kind of survivalists, whatever. I'll use that term. He's talking about an armed resistance. I mean, it could get that crazy.
I've heard a lot of people talking about this. And in fact, I had this conversation earlier today. The fact that it honestly looks like the radical left is trying to push people into the point where they decide, okay, the only way to fix this is an armed insurrection. And I mean, it's the stupidest decision you could make. You don't pick a war with the people who have all the guns,
Yeah, but also it would be a good. That's a little theoretical, but in the end, you could make a point that it's a great way to grab everyone's guns. But the last thing I want to talk about in terms of COVID before we have to move on is, and one kind of a comical thing. I think it would be very interesting to see. And again, I don't hope for any of this because I'm at the receiving end of it. If we do go into lockdown, if it is another crisis, again, we'll have to look at Biden under the microscope without any handlers. Will that be that will be must-watch TV, correct, Dr. Lopkin?
This administration could not handle a crisis.
I wouldn't let them change my oil.
I mean, Biden is clueless. Harris will stand there laughing.
Yes.
It's the administration is not ready for this. They can't handle, and in fact, they're actually they don't even understand the problem that's going on right now with inflation. They don't understand why people aren't going back to work. And, Biden keeps saying, well, you have to pay them more. And a reporter actually asked him, really, are you going to pay $30 for a Big Mac? Because that's what he's actually advocating, because the prices have to go up because nobody in government seems to understand what kind of margins most businesses work on.
Because they're insulated. Joe Biden has never operated a lemonade stand. And the other thing he doesn't realize, forget about the $30 Big Mac. How about Robo-Mac? Meaning you're going to have to go to a grocery store lately. How many self-checkout lines do we have? You don't think McDonald's is already, I'm sure, have prototypes?
McDonald's has them. McDonald's, even before COVID, rolled out kiosks where you walk up, you put your order in on the touch screen, you swipe your payment at the kiosk, and then you just wait for them to call your number and you take your food.
I think it's going to get I've seen those, and you are correct.
Yeah.
I think it's going to get even bigger than that. I think they'll have robo-cooks.
Those are also already being worked on. There are some restaurants that already have those in place. This is, of course,
the whole thing is so obvious. You don't have to belabor a point. You look at a grocery store, they're going to have robo stock clerks. So Biden and Pelosi, these people have not worked in longer than I've been born. Almost that, right?
Yeah.
And do you think they know anything about economics? No. But anyway, that's an obvious point, but we'll see what happens there. And the last thing is Ben and Jerry's. Could there be something in the air in Vermont that turns Jews against themselves? You had Bernie, our buddy Bernie, and then you have Ben and Jerry and their stance about what they did with Israel.
Yeah, I do not understand what is going on in Vermont. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Vermont is not a well-run state. I mean, there are people in Vermont that are making quite a bit of money, and they have been talking about seceding from Vermont for a long time because the state is so badly run. And yet, for some reason, this Jewish population, Bernie Sanders, Ben and Jerry, they are becoming self-hating Jews in Vermont. And, it was amazing when I saw the company that owns Ben and Jerry, Unilever, actually distance themselves from Ben and Jerry and say, no, this is not our stance. This is them, talking out of their asses. We're not, we're not backing this.
You know what it really is? It's when you're Ben and Jerry, okay, I don't know, they're probably 70 years old. They smoked a lot of pot, did a lot of acid, and grooving out. They got lucky. Sometimes in life, lightning strikes. It just happens, Dr. Lopkin. Okay. The reason I bring it up is because their fascination and preoccupation were uber socialistic agenda and liberal mindset takes precedent over their own ethnicity.
It's ridiculous. And it's also, I don't understand how these, it is, but I don't understand how these people can be these are millionaire socialists. I mean, come on. You used capitalism all your life, and all of a sudden you're going...
They're billionaire socialists, which is hysterical. Bernie Sanders didn't work till he was 40. Now he's got 3 houses. How many houses do you have, Dr. Lopkin?
I got one house.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kidding. Yeah. But these people, I think when you're in their circle, it becomes certain things are chic. We talked about this before. 50 years ago, Jews, as part of the liberal hierarchy, were on the top. Israel was right up there. They're no longer needed, so it's not in vogue. It's not in fact. Israel's demonized now. Jews are, they're such a small part of the population now. You don't have to worry about pissing them off. And I think it's really chic to be anti-Israel because that makes you woke. And woke is more important than your own ethnicity, isn't it, Dr. Lopkin?
Yes, and that's gotten out of hand. I mean, right now, if you turn on the news, you are not going to see coverage of what actually happened in Gaza. There was an explosion. This was not an Israeli bombing. It was not missile attacks. This was the Palestinian terrorists were storing weapons in civilian areas so that, allegedly so that, this way they won't get bombed. We can keep them there. And the weapons exploded, killing their own people. Where is the reporting on this? You have to dig to find it.
Because there's an agenda there.
Yes.
And in closing, when you look at the history books, the current history books, that you'll see, Israel's the demon. No one talks about the Oslo Accords when Baruch, I think his name was, the prime minister of Israel, and Clinton gave Arafat. In fact, Arafat was surprised, was shocked on the deal he got. But in the end, his terrorist ideology and his corruptness took over the best interests, or superseded the best interests of his own people, didn't it?
Yes, it did. I mean, we've talked about this before. Israel has only had one demand that they refuse to back away from, and that is that they have the right to exist. Basically,
that's a pretty low
they're
bar.
saying, basically they are saying, stop bombing us and we will give you another state. We'll work with you. All we want is to be able to live without missiles flying. And the terrorists refuse to capitulate on that.
And in the world now, the woke world is giving them the energy to continue this. Well, Dr. Lopkin, a great edition of Carnivore Bites, and we're really rolling along pretty nicely. We're available almost everywhere, aren't we, Dr. Lopkin?
Yes, you can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can catch us on the Carnivore Radio website. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. Thank our listeners.
We'll see you next week.